So today, you two, I wanted to make this the customer service episode. I feel like we've been like hitting business and sales and marketing and storytelling and stuff really, really hard the last couple of weeks. And so I wanted to really dial in on customer service. And so there's a few parts of this. To me, customer service is, kind of how you communicate like to new customers for sure, and how you make sure that it really follows like what they need and you understand what they need, and understanding that training and coaching is an evolution. It's not a declaration. And then part of customer service is also renewals and referrals. And so we're going to talk about how to do renewals and referrals. So there will be some business side of this. Before we do, I wanted to just share, I don't know if anybody else is interested in this type of thing, but I wanted to just share, because I haven't even shared with you, Amber and Ren, like kind of how I think about these podcasts and how we're recording them, and why I think that they're getting to be pretty fun and pretty engaging. And you guys obviously know this, but you don't really know why I'm doing this or whether it's on purpose. But I come into these podcasts now with like a fair amount of preparation in almost every case. Usually a lot of notes and definitely like a lot of preparation. Sometimes it's from the book that I'm writing, and this time it's separate than the book that I'm writing. But you guys have no idea what I'm talking about beforehand. And like Ren, Amber, obviously the listener doesn't, but Ren, Amber, you two actually know less than the listener when you log on, because the listener has the title and the description of the podcast episode. You don't even have that. And that's actually by design. I want this to be as organic of a conversation as it can. And part of that is I want you to almost be in like the position of the listeners who are experts in this stuff as well. And so your reactions, your questions, your thoughts very much mimic a lot of what the people listening would have. And I just feel like that makes for a much more organic, like we're talking with you, not talking at you type conversation. So I don't know. I thought that'd be kind of cool to share. Is it?
It's like we have reaction videos. We need a spin-off.
Like unboxing videos.
Yeah, like unboxing videos or like reacting to like 70s songs or 60s movies. We can call it the Jewish guy, the black guy, and the Southern Belle react to movies. That'd be awesome. I think we're doing that vicariously anyway. No wonder I'm enjoying it so much. It's good to know though.
Who was it that I spoke to? So I was at this event last week, right? This Raise the Bar event. It was a good event. And I hit it off with one guy. Oh, Len, you would love him. Like he's your sub his name is Michael Piercy. He's your sub if you can't show up anytime. I looked at him like 3 days in. He was basically like my best friend at the event.
Right.
And I had never met him before. He's in New Jersey. He was a pro baseball player. And now he trains athletes and talks about high performance. And I looked at him like 3 days in. I was like, I figured out who you remind me of. I was like, you're JB Smooth.
That's
like
awesome.
He's JB Smooth, man. You will love. I got to introduce you to this guy. But I was having a conversation with him, and somebody was on stage. Shantae Cofield was on stage, who I'd never met before, but she's super rad. She talks about social media and stuff like that. And she was on the stage, and I was in back. I was kind of talking to Michael, and I was listening to her, and I was taking notes. And I was sitting with Michael. I wasn't talking to her, but I was listening to her and taking notes and stuff like that. And Shantae made a joke about black people not being able to swim. And I mean, she's black, and she was on stage, and I just looked at Michael, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with my face. And so Shantae afterwards, I kind of laughed. She's like, no, it's okay. You're like I'm black. I made the joke. Like you're allowed to laugh. But
I do that just to make you uncomfortable. By the way, it's in there. We get a monthly handbook.
And this was a fitness event, of course, right? So it's basically all white dudes,
right?
And so, we're just kind of looking around. We're like, I don't know what to do right now. Nobody teaches you this in fitness trainer school. But I kind of looked at Michael in the back afterwards, and I was just like, one of the things that obviously it's not why Ren is the co-host on the podcast,
Right,
But
right.
let me tell you, having Ren as the co-host on the pod, for anybody who listens to the podcast and has never seen it, Ren is Black.
Yeah.
And so having you as a co-host on the podcast, I feel like gives us more leeway to like actually talk like humans and not worry
absolutely.
about being somebody else was talking. They're just like, I feel like I can't say anything without some sort of, and we poke fun at it, right? Like some sort of backlash from we poke fun. What was the one a couple of weeks ago? We're just like the polyamorous vegans from California.
Right. Go to Burning Man, the Burning Man polyamorous vegans. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, because you were singing "It Takes Two."
Right. I mean, it's in cancel culture, which is where we find ourselves squarely placed now. There's a context and nuance to what you say, but I mean, we got one of the greatest splits you can get here. You know, we've got a Black guy, a Jewish guy, and a Caucasian female. Like, I mean, we've covered most of the bases here. Like we know amongst us what's funny and allowable, and I think it translates to relaxing the audience that's listening. Because really,
so here's an angle. Okay, her email is amber@theptdc.com.
Here we go. Here we go.
Please send your best a Black guy, a white woman, and a Jewish guy walk into a bar jokes.
I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Stand by.
Thank you, ChatGPT.
Okay, let's get into customer service stuff. There's a few like quick hit things, and I would love for you all, a couple of these, I'll give credit where credit's due to where the stuff comes from. But there's a couple like quick hit things that I think we'll have like a bit of conversation on, and I'm happy to have as much as we need to explore the subject. But I feel like they're a bit quicker, and then we'll get into like almost a deeper conversation, and then we'll probably end with the stuff about referrals and renewals, because I think that what ends
like
to
that.
it. Let me ask you a question first. Let me tease the referrals and renewals bit that's going to be at the end of the show.
Yeah.
When?
Yes.
Because Amber is very busy with ChatGPT,
absolutely,
finding a Black guy, a Jewish guy, and a white girl walk into a bar jokes. But yeah, amber@theptdc.com. Any jokes you ever want to send, she doesn't have enough work running basically every single one of my companies while I try to write books. And so, when do you think is the best time to ask a client for a referral?
Oh, early. And that's a common error that I see, because people wait till the end when the person's really conditioned to you, when they're probably sick of you, when they spend time with you, and they may have had a lovely experience, but due to habituation, they've got very used to you in the process, et cetera, et cetera. Early on, and probably early on around your first noticeable activation point is a great time. So either very early, or for me, somewhere around that first, I'm doing it. When they first learn to ride the bike, right? I'm doing it myself. And I'm like, yay. And then that's a great time.
Okay. So you should have stopped when you were ahead. You almost nailed it.
No, don't be like that, John.
The activation point is the second best time, and still a very important time. And I'm going to talk to you about the activation point. Do you know the answer, Amber?
When they sign up.
When they sign up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When they first sign up. Okay. Teasing referrals. Cool. I'm going to bring in the first thing that I'm going to bring in. This comes from, both of these actually come from Kevin Carr, who gave, I think I mentioned this last time. He gave what I think was the best presentation of the weekend last week, and he talked about customer service. So both of these two things were communicated by him. I don't think they come from him, but they were communicated from. So the first one is actually from the hospitality industry. And so the hospitality industry is something called the 10-5 rule. Have either of you heard of this before?
Nope.
It's a fantastic rule. And immediately when I say it, you'll see how important it is in the gym. When you're 10 feet away from a member, you smile and make eye contact. When you're within 5 feet, you verbally greet them. And this is the 10-5 rule in hospitality. And if you've ever been in a hotel that prides itself on hospitality, Marriott, Four Seasons, anything like that, you'll notice it, because part of this rule in the hospitality industry is if a customer comes, if a guest comes within 10 feet of you, you actually have to stop what you're doing and you make eye contact and you smile. And if they come within 5 feet, then you verbally greet them, and verbally greet them like, hey, nice to see you. How are you? Right. The 10-5 rule. That's the first one. That's what I wanted to start with. Any thoughts, reactions to that?
I like it. As Amber collects her thoughts, coming through retail the way that I did, I was taught in retail that you always greet every single person that walks into your section. So this was back in the day when they were separated place, Nautica section, Polo section, Tommy Hilfiger section, and I worked in the Polo section. I was a Polo specialist, and not, so that's something that good retailers teach typically.
I think it's funny because in my mind, I'm trying to think, like, my initial reaction is duh, like, right. But like, I don't know, but that's not how everybody functions. Right. So in my head, I'm trying to like gather my thoughts. Cause like I do that and I'm not working. I can't help but smile and say hi to people as I'm passing them by. I'm like, if I go to another country, they're going to think I'm effing crazy because that's not normal outside of the South.
To be fair, you see like 2 people a day most of the time.
I
we all work from home.
today. I left my
Do
house.
you go outside? I don't
You went outside today?
I do.
That's amazing.
I did go outside today.
Good for you, Amber.
I know. I was very proud of myself.
Taking a positive turn already. I didn't expect that.
It's warm out. That's why.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good reminder. And it's an unobtrusive thing. It's just based, to me, I mean, I don't know if this is anything. This is not Kevin. This is not hospitality. Like, I won't put words in anybody's mouth. To me, all that this does is it's a very quick reminder to just appreciate that somebody else is there. Let them know that you're approachable. And that's kind of it. So the 10-5 rule. Okay, cool. That was quick. This also comes from Kevin. Most clients begin an exercise routine for extrinsic motivators, but they continue that routine for intrinsic ones. So examples of extrinsic motivators: looks, performance, and health. Examples of intrinsic motivators: enjoyment, social interaction, community, and how it makes them feel. Now, my takeaway from this is that's a very good, easy way to figure out the difference and understand the difference between your marketing and your serving. So this is my takeaway. Build your marketing around extrinsic motivators and your coaching around intrinsic.
Yes.
Thoughts, friends?
I love this. I use a Trojan horse example with our students in the OTA coaching because a lot of the coaches that we get to work with aren't generally meatheads. Like, we have some really cerebral coaches that we work with. They've done other things in life. We got a lot of pretty smart students that we interact with. This is why they choose us, obviously. Wink, wink.
Always very important to compliment your customers. Yes, you're also
important.
very good looking.
Yeah, they're
amazing. I look
amazing.
at the people who buy from us, and you know what? Immediately say, damn, all of these people are good looking. Then I look at the people who don't buy from us, and I'm like, y'all got to do something about your faces.
Yeah. I am not. They're out of my league. Clearly, all the people that hire us, way out of my league. I feel like Shrek around them. But what I tell them is that, hey, I understand that you want to talk about these really intrinsic, deep health 6 pillars situations, and you want to attract clients that way. But you're speaking a language that they don't speak yet, right? You're trying to sell them German language lessons in German, and they don't speak it. So you need to speak the language that they understand, and then you can teach them the second language. So consider yourself a Trojan horse. I might say, get you toned, right? I might say, drop 2 dress sizes. I may say, feel sexy in your bathing suit to get in the gates, right? And then once I'm in the gates, I'm going to let all the Trojan soldiers out that are deep health, meaningful, feeling, intrinsic thought patterns, because I'm afforded that opportunity by nature of the fact that I first captured a client. So save the deep stuff for when you get into the process. Talk about what they understand as you market to them.
So save the deep stuff for when you get in the gates. Is that what you're saying?
Something less salacious than that. something non-creepy in that vein.
We need a drinking game for when we make inappropriate comments.
We really do. Like, who can survive it?
At one point, I feel like we need to do this podcast where we all just eat hot wings
Yes.
and just see what happens.
I'm not eating no damn hot wings.
I love hot
No.
wings.
I don't. I do
I
not.
hate hot wings.
I
I
don't
like
like
hot
hot
wings, but I don't like hot wings the next morning.
As the
Yeah.
oldest person here with the oldest gastrointestinal system, I also would like to opt out of any hot wings via podcasting. Thank you very much.
Fair.
It's almost colonoscopy time for you boys, so you're not doing that.
But that kind of goes into a little bit about what we were talking about in a previous episode, doesn't it? Where we're kind of like, no, you know what? This wasn't on this show. I did an episode of Lift the Bar of their podcast with Stuart. It was a good show. But one of the things that I said on that show, and I've gotten a few messages about it, was I feel like the fitness industry is just too goddamn nice these days.
Yes.
And this is what I said on the other show as well, and any trainer worth their salt knows that every so often / pretty often, you kind of need to call a client out on their shit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just all trying to be nice. We're trying not to offend anybody. We're trying to say the nice things. And I'm all for the healthy body at all sizes and all bodies are equal. Like, I think it's great, but I also think that you can't argue that it is healthier to not have a lot of excess fat on you. And if you're happy with that, totally cool. But I still think it's valid to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so, and then the other part of this conversation, of course, is understanding that extrinsic motivators are what get people into our programs, our gyms, doesn't have to necessarily be our gyms, into more consistent exercise.
It's the gateway.
This is where I'm sure, like, I'm going to be canceled by somebody.
Probably so.
Yeah. Right.
But it's, how do you mitigate that? Like, you want to be a good person. You don't want to offend people unjustifiably. But I think it's also very important to meet people where they're at, using the language that they might be using, their internal dialogues. Like you don't even have a chance to have a conversation with people unless you use the words that they use. If you're using different words because you're so careful over the conversations that you have, the people who you're trying to convince to think that way, that don't think that way, are quite literally never going to see it. And
it's impossible.
On one hand, it's the responsibility of people who have big platforms to open up conversations and have open conversations about this. And that's one of the reasons why I like having this podcast, is because we can have deeper conversations, more nuanced conversations about this. Whether you agree or disagree with me is perfectly fine. I think it's still valid to have a longer form conversation about it. But you can't really do that in short form media. It's much, much more difficult. So that's why I like having a podcast like this. But I do think I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem that we all feel pressure. I can't say we all. I feel tremendous pressure to respectfully speak to whomever I can. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I kind of believe in my heart of hearts that the truth is what matters most. And if you're offended by the truth, that's kind of your own problem. Because my job is to kind of share how I think things are and the world exists, and how to navigate this world that we live in, which is not always pretty, which is very often not pretty. And that's, I think, important to understand. And the best way that I think we can go about navigating it and making an impact in it is to help as many people as possible. And in many cases, helping as many people as possible is speaking and leading with those extrinsic motivators, even though we know that that isn't what we're ultimately going to really work on with somebody.
I don't think truth is so, and I won't speak long about this. I know we got to move on. I don't think truth is so problematic I think that our fear of being truthful is more problematic than the truth. Quick story: when I was doing insurance, at some point, if you apply for a life insurance policy, we would check your medical examination, your most recent medical history, and your weight.
Okay.
And in addition, that's normal in nutrition. So if we proposed an incorrect price, got back medical information and said, hey, we need to raise the price a little bit, this person has a greater risk, we would go out and place the modification to that policy. Another $3 a month, another $5 a month. So the very first one that I did as a very new insurance agent, I tap danced all around it. This lady was overweight on our weight scales. And again, not uncommon in insurance, regardless of how I feel about her, how healthy she was. And I danced around it for like 5 minutes. She said, baby, this is a black lady, you know, she said, baby, do I have to pay more? I was like, yes, ma'am. She said, is it because I'm fat? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, baby, I know I'm fat. I've been fat the whole time you've been here. Just tell me what I need to do, right? And I think that we don't perceive that in the reality.
Get out to the South.
Like you got to get
awesome.
to, first of all, Jonathan, you got to get down here.
There's nothing better than a black woman calling you baby. There is just nothing better.
Baby, is it because I'm fat? So yes, ma'am. I know I've been fat the whole time you've been here, baby. You want some sweet tea?
And the best hugs.
The best hugs. But I think that speaks to what
Calvin was a baby, when Calvin was a baby, his first birthday, he was just cranky as all hell. Yeah, there were tons of people. Everybody was holding him. He was so cranky. And Allison's mom has this friend who is a big Jamaican woman. Big woman.
That'll do it.
Big old boobs, big woman. She put Calvin on her chest. Baby, let me tell you.
Done. All his problems were solved, weren't they, Jonathan?
He was real.
That's how we resolve things in the South. You just hug a big lady.
Happy.
They soothe everything. They can calm any dogs, raccoons, burglars, anything. It works on everybody. But I think that speaks to what you're saying. Like, why have we become so truth avoidant in the industry that we just can't help people? Like, that's too far along the spectrum, right?
Because we can't handle conflict. Like, that's a lot of is understanding how to handle conflict and learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, that's where a lot of our issues as a whole, when it comes from sales, coaching, this stuff, is learning to be comfortable when you're uncomfortable. And they can't. And so they lash out, or they don't communicate properly, or whatever. But life is uncomfortable. Like, there's just no way around it. Right. And we've lost our ability to navigate how to do that.
The insurance industry is academic, right? It's just math.
It is.
And so you can be offended, but it's math.
You have something else to blame.
Argue with you that statistically, if you have a lot of fat on you, you are at greater risk for disease. That's math. If you're happy with that, like this lady seemed to have been, fucking A, all the power to you. Like, baby, just tell me how much I need to pay.
Right.
I'm drinking this sweet tea.
Right.
And I'm gonna go home and watch my TV. And that's how I want to live my life.
Right.
Hell yes. Right. Fine. Like, I ain't gonna change it. The fitness industry doesn't have those statistics though, to kind of back off on it. All right. Customer service, going back to it. I want to lead with this and see where the conversation goes, because Amber is maybe like one of the only people that I know that's more of a customer experience geek than I am. And so I'm kind of probably let her take over a little bit here. But
right.
I think what's often missed, and the real point that I want to make as you're thinking about your customer experience, your client experience, this could be online, offline, doesn't matter what you coach, is that there is often too much focus on the moments and too little focus on the moments in between the moments. Music is made by the silence between the beats. Design is made by the blank space between the design. Customer experience is not made by the times that you are actively with your client. It's made by those in-between times. What do you think?
That was beautiful. That sounded like something Morgan Freeman said at the end of a movie. I love that. I love the music part for sure. But as a witness to Amber Reynolds' customer service goddess like skill set, I'm just gonna back out and just because when coaches ask me about this, I always say again, because she doesn't have enough to do. Oh yeah, you really want to talk to Amber about that? Like it's just that's what I know what and I don't know if it's a skill or a talent, but I just know she's better at that than I am.
It's just it's just people with good different things. That's fine.
I'm fine with that.
But you don't have to be creative with it. You need to, it's like design, these days, there's a bunch of free, like when I started on the internet, I had to teach myself basic Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
I went on YouTube, I read all the tutorials, and I taught myself basic Photoshop. The same thing with basic HTML.
Same.
Like you had to do this when you started a website. You had to teach yourself these things. You don't have to do that anymore, but you do need to know a couple kind of 80-20 rules of engagement. So with design, it's just a matter of understanding the proportions of an image. It's basically an L. And so you want your kind of top right quadrant often to be empty, and you have to understand where the eyes are going to start. The eyes are going to start on the top left of a page, right? And then they're going to kind of zigzag down. And so there's like 3 or 4 rules. The blank space is one of them. Blank space is very important in design. If you understand those 3 or 4 rules, you can use Canva and make as good design as most designers these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatively straightforward to do. So I think it's the same thing. And Amber, will lean on you to give a couple of those like high priority kind of fundamentals. I think it's the same thing with customer experience. Like you don't need to do full-on customer experience mapping, customer journey mapping. I mean, I'll talk through it really quick once Amber's done, if it makes sense to, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that there's just a couple kind of fundamentals to understand. So Amber, I mean, I'll put you on the spot. Give me some of these fundamentals.
My brain's kind of going in a few different directions. I mean, I think the most important thing is to understand your individual client, which I think is always going to be the hardest thing for our coaches, because that piece of information matters from the inception of your business to this as well. And
so let me give you 5 really good questions.
That'll help.
Let me give you 5 really good questions to start with your client on day 1 to get to know them better individually. Because remember, one of the first lines that I started here is that training is an evolutionary process. You're not declaring what the client will do. It actually should evolve session to session to session to session as you get to know them better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question number 1. What motivated you to come work out here? These come from Kevin Carr as well. Question number 1. What motivated you to come work out here? Number 2. What are some of your past experiences with exercise? Number 3. What does your current exercise routine look like? Number 4. How would you define success after training with me for 6 months? And number 5. What do you think is a realistic commitment for you?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really valuable to ask those 5 questions. And then you can use a little bit of surveying to kind of peel back the onion and get to the truth. For example, what do you think is a realistic commitment for you? Oh, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. Well, I mean, honestly, that would be great. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you never miss a session, realistically, what do you think you'd hit if you're doing 5 days a week? Oh, probably like a 6. Okay, so if you work out 4 days a week, what do you think? What do you think? 1 to 10? Still 6, maybe a 7. Okay, that's cool. What about 3 days a week? Yeah, I mean, that's a 9. I could definitely do 3 days. Cool. Let's start with 3 days a week. Let's nail that, right? And work out from there. And so when you ask these questions, you can start to figure out how it works. Like, what are some of your past experiences with exercise? Cool. Did you enjoy doing that? Nah, I hated it. All right. We're not getting you to do deadlifts on a Bosu ball because those are fucking stupid. Now, I'm not bad mouthing your previous trainer. That was some dumb shit stuff that he made you do. So we're not going to do that. I'm sorry you got hurt. This will be different. It's an example from my life. Okay. And then like that fourth question, right? How would you define success after training?
That's the big one. That's the big one.
This
is where you come in, Amber.
Well, my problem is, to me, this isn't customer service. This is more like good coaching.
Good coaching is customer service.
I define it.
Topic.
I define it differently.
Okay.
To me.
Is this our first fight?
Huh? No, this is definitely not our first. It won't be our last, but it's definitely not our first.
Most recent.
Because customer service, customer experience, and coaching are all siloed in my brain. So you're throwing me off.
I feel like you fought with me more than I fought with you.
Oh yeah. You're a little more laid back than I am. I'm a little more uptight.
I feel like you've known that we've been fighting more often than I've known that we've been fighting.
Typical guy.
That's awesome. Oh, that made me so happy.
But to answer your question, so with that answer, right? Like, you know that you want to help them get the goal, but if you can help them imagine what that looks like, what that feels like, you can remind them about that throughout the process. So if you know up front, okay, I want to lose weight, great. What will it look like when you succeed? Well, I'll be 10 pounds lighter. Okay, and then what does that mean? Well, I'll be able to fit into my dress. Well, great. What does that mean for you? Right? When we understand the meaning behind the goal, we can pepper that into their experience, right? So like when I was coaching, one of the things that I would do is I would ask a similar question, and then I would send them postcards from their future self, reminding them about their goal along the way.
That's good.
And so God. Like, hey, like we're on a beach sipping on a Mai Tai and we're looking hot and da-da-da-da-da. Just wanted to let you know we're doing great, right? Like just something super simple. Did you send that
in the mail to them?
Mm-hmm.
Holy
God,
shit.
You're good at this.
Damn it. I'm so much dumber than I think it. Like when Amber talks, I just feel, I don't know how you feel. Well, you've got 11 books. I don't have the books to support my self-esteem. So I just feel increasingly dumber every time Amber says something that's just practically brilliant. Like,
you don't know how much weird crap comes out of my brain. Eventually something positive comes out of it, but there's a lot of weird shit that comes up too.
So fucking good. Oh my
the
God.
postcards from the future self is really nice because it's very vivid, right? You can paint a picture with those really, really nicely, and you can get deeper. I've heard a lot of examples that, I'm sorry if you get offended by this, but I'm going to talk about losing inches and losing weight. But I've heard a lot of examples as well that are kind of similar, but not as vivid as Amber's, where the client's goal will be to fit into a size whatever pant. Mm-hmm. And the trainer will actually go and buy a size whatever pant and literally just like keep it. They're like, yo, this is yours. I'll give you it in 6 months. That's awesome. Then that'll be like you don't even need to show it to them at that point, right? You can just like hang it in your office, or you can keep it folded. And so I've heard a lot of examples of stuff like that, where it'll be a symbol to identify kind of that future goal. Whereas Amber's is more vivid for sure, and it's more like deep health, more away from the quantification of fitness.
You don't need to be a 6-figure successful trainer to send a goddamn postcard.
Can't
like that crap. It's so brilliant in its
Right.
simplicity. Yeah,
Right.
I found $1 in the car. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'll send a postcard to my client and get paid for 6 additional months.
So what I
Just
would do
'cause I
is
sent it.
I would design them on Canva based on what I know about them, and then have it printed
course you
that
would.
way.
Of course
Yeah,
you would.
Stop it.
because I'm
Just stop
extra.
it.
But
So I'm getting pissed off now. Just
Give me an example. Give me an example.
no,
What's their name?
nobody wants to hear
Make up a
this.
funny name. Make up a funny name. I want to hear it.
a name like of a client.
Yeah, call her Lorelai.
Okay, Lorelai. So she was going. She had a trip she was doing. No, legit. I had a client who did mission work with her church, and she was wanting to get ready to go for a mission in Italy.
What's mission
And
work? Oh, like you go and like try to convert people to your faith? Like that?
well, I might not be saying that right, but she was doing church stuff somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think they were trying to
Got
convert
it.
people, but they did like field trips, but international.
Volunteering.
Yeah,
and
that kind of
Got
stuff,
it.
right?
Cool.
And so she was wanting to get ready for that because she knew she was going to be eating extra because it's Italy, and going to be doing a lot of physical stuff, and she wanted to be, strong enough to do that, and she wanted to look cute because she was single, so you never know what'll happen out there. So like, so I
Hey, you want to meet a good guy, like
and I
go
tell
and do
you,
mission work in Italy. Like you're gonna like this.
yep.
Probably pretty good. There's probably good people there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
and
yeah.
so I
Get
took
some,
the
get
little
some, Lorelai. Go get some.
right. She was the
Love
most interesting like church person that I've ever met because she was like she cursed all the time and like
Right.
pro-abortion, like all this stuff, but very
Yeah.
Catholic at the same time. It was fantastic. I loved her.
Amazing.
but so so I would design a postcard in Canva, and sometimes it was a joke about eating a lot, or sometimes it was about checking out the cute guy at the gelato shop, or whatever, and just these weird little inside jokes that I would build into it to send to her. I mean, she lived 15 minutes away, so she was one of my local online clients, but like,
Oh, so the trip in the future was the trip to Italy that she was
Yes.
getting prepared for.
yes, exactly. Yeah, so that was the goal. Yeah.
Oh.
It's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
take the concept of building in, okay, every client is going to experience this, but you make
Mhm.
it an experience by personalizing it based on what you know about that client.
That example is perfect because of all of the different themes that we've spoken about today, the moments between the moments, the
Mhm.
visualizing the future pacing 6 months, what's a win for you,
Mhm.
the extrinsic goals of go get some Lorelai,
Yeah.
get that guy at the gelato shop. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so much there. That's
Well,
beautiful. I
And if
love
you
that.
think too, like, when are the times that we struggle the most, right? So like, I think most humans at 3 a.m. when you wake up randomly, or before bed, when you start stressing about whatever and questioning, your role in life and whether you're going to succeed and all of this
Right.
stuff. And, every
I think
client
about
has those
space,
triggers.
and I think about the worry that there's extraterrestrials that are watching us and basically going to conquer
I
us.
would
That's
be
what I
okay
think
with
about.
that.
I
would be
read
okay
way
with
too
that.
much science fiction is my problem.
Yeah, I can't do that. But knowing those low moments, and those are my favorite ones to target. Just gonna sidebar that.
Yeah.
Is knowing there are really hard moments and finding a way to get them through it, because that's the funnest part for me, is knowing when they get dressed in the morning that they get dressed in front of the mirror and they kind of slouch and they kind of poke at their belly and like they have a moment, and then how can I help them through that moment, because that's in that moment they want to quit. And so understanding those low moments and how do we get them through that and lessen the damage. And so that's why the postcard thing was fun for me, is to help them through. When I know they really needed something, that's when I would send it.
Mm.
Did you draw a stick figure of Vincente at the gelato shop that Lorelai was going to bang?
No, but what I did do is I would always choose, like, I don't do my own videos, but I would definitely choose eye candy videos for some of my clients based on
You just
what
like
I know
get a
they
guy
liked.
on Upwork or like on Fiverr. You just get like a
No,
good
like
looking,
on
like
just
Italian
YouTube,
guy to be
like bent over rows or whatever. Like, okay, let's find a hottie do a bent over rows.
oh,
and I'll
that's
plug
funny.
that in there.
That's
So
awesome.
I knew what their
funny.
types were, and
That's
I
awesome.
Oh my
updated as
God.
necessary.
Think about how like, yo, you gotta learn this video. Let's get. Oh, you like really? Okay, I had a neighbor who really liked like super hairy men, and it was the funniest. It was the funniest conversation ever, because we're super tight with her. She's awesome, and she was talking about her husband's chest hair, and she's like, yeah, ever since Tom Selleck.
The 80s stash. The
So
Mag
Amber, what I
stash.
need you to do is I need
Oh,
you to
God.
find me an entire, because she's always had trouble sticking to her workout routines. I need you to find me an entire collection of workout demo videos of just really, really hairy men.
I can find that. That would not be hard.
She's already got a file.
She legit like if there's a guy
Instead
who
of
has like a
Pornhub,
puff
it's
of
based
hair,
off of.
Right.
if there's a guy
She's
who
your
has like
trainer.
a puff, like
Yeah.
a tuft of hair like sticking out the top of his shirt, she's just like,
She's
I gotta
in it.
go.
Yep.
She's all in. Yeah.
Get it.
Tom Selleck looking motherfucker. Okay, so we're gonna. I have a name for this episode, Amber.
Oh, good.
Which
So I
you
don't have to
can
think of it.
veto if you want. Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of the best customer service stuff that I've come across is from somebody named Joey Coleman, who's actually a friend of mine who I've actually presented on customer service with multiple times. And Joey wrote what I think is like the best book on the subject. It's called Never Lose a Customer Again. And what it does is it gives you a process to work with in the first 100 days after you sign up a new customer. And we follow this process for a lot of our products for the PGDC. But I think we'll just call this episode Never Lose a Client Again. I think that's pretty cool. Renewals or referrals? What are we talking about first?
I've done something with renewals that's been helpful for me.
Mhm.
That might be helpful. Yeah. So I'm a renewal culture. Disclosure, private faith, I don't do coaching necessarily, but all of the current clients that I have are in one group. It's easy for communication. And somewhere about a year and a half ago, I just started sharing in the group when people renewed. I just created a culture of, so probably, and
Isn't that just the simplest thing ever?
it was just the simplest, and I felt stupid for not. So every once in a while, I just pop it. I created a graphic on Canva, a welcome back graphic. So happy to have Stephanie back. She completed her first 3 months and decided to sign on for 9 more months so she complete a whole year together. So glad to have you, Stephanie. And this happens like every 4 to 6 weeks. So what happened with my 2 most recent clients? 2 months in, I'm on a coaching call and they say, "Hey, I really want to talk to you about how I can continue." I said, "Well, got another month left." Yeah, but I'm ready to go ahead and pay for it now, right? So I made it sort of socially acceptable in the group and expected that this is what people do here.
Yeah, this is the expected behavior.
Right. And I haven't had I have not had one specific renewal conversation that I set out to have in probably the last 12, 13 months.
I got a challenge to anybody listening to this is pay attention to the words that you're using for the aspects of your coaching and make sure that none of them include languaging that insinuates finality.
Mm-hmm.
I did a consulting call with a group, and it was a group of like 18 online trainers for a company. And one of the things that I was helping them do was improve their renewals and customer service experience. I mean, they do a great job, but you can always get better. And so they were having trouble renewing people. And I was like, okay, walk me through the process. And when they were trying to renew people, was near the end of the person's package on a graduation call. I was like, okay, first of all, waiting till the end is like not a good time to renew somebody. We'll talk about like the best time to bring it up, but you're calling it a graduation call. You're quite literally insinuating that they are finished, that they are graduating. Change the language of that, man. Call it a checkpoint. Call it a waypoint call, whatever. But don't call it a graduation call. So that's my first challenge to anybody listening to this is audit the language you're using to ensure that none of it insinuates finality. Because a lot of the time it will. Because it's what you kind of hear otherwise. The best time to renew a client is actually the first major win that they have. if nothing else, so I love what you're doing, Rand. If you have a community, for sure, it's building a culture from the ground up of this is what's expected. Seth Godin's famous line, this is how we do things here. People like us do things like this here, right? If you have a community, now not everybody has a community that their clients are part of, which is fine. Obviously if you do, you can do that. But what I like to do is I like to have the conversation early and future pace. The problem is when you bring people in, I mean, a lot of the beginning of this conversation is you bring people in, whether you communicated extrinsic goals or whether you didn't, the fact of the matter is that's still why they started with you. It is. In almost every case, they started with you because of some extrinsic goal, no matter how much you hate that or not. That's the truth. But you know, because you're a good coach, that if you want to make real change with a person, life isn't a fucking 30-day challenge. Right. And so you got to go deep with the person. Well, the sooner you can begin the process of doing the real work, the better. And oftentimes we have to market in a way that's different from how we ultimately want to coach. And I want you to shorten that gap as much as possible. And the best way that we've found to do that is the minute that somebody has a win and they come to you, small as possible. Hey, somebody noticed that I was more energetic today, or, hey, I was down an inch, or, hey, I made a good decision with my food today. I was thinking about that thing that you told me, green face. And I was like, I'm vegan, so I'm offended, but like, it still was helpful for me. And so you're like, oh my God, can I call you right now? And you get them on the phone because you want to celebrate that win. First thing, the minute that they're like starting to activate and they had a win, get them on the phone, celebrate with them. Be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, tell me about it. Paint the picture. Who was there? What did they say? How did you feel? Was there any music on? What was the weather like? Like, get as many details to paint that vivid picture. And then you say, that's amazing. All this happened in a week. All this happened in 2 weeks. And then you take a step back, and tonality is very important. And you're super excited and leaning in, and then you kind of lean back and you're just like, have you thought about what this might look like in a year? And you open up the conversation now, and you future pace it to a year. And you go deeper with them into where this is going. And then you say, do you want to start building a plan for that? And in a lot of cases, you can actually get the person signed up to renew. Say you first get them signed up for a month or month to month or 90 days or whatever it is. You can get them signed up much longer term within the first few weeks of them starting, if you nail that activation point. And you don't give them a discount. You just add on a year to their first 3 months. Like it just adds on, because number one, now you have more, cash up front. Now you have more commitment of client. Great. But more than anything else, now you can start doing the real work. Now you have that buy-in and that commitment to start really changing their life. And even if they don't, you may feel comfortable bringing up the renewal conversation there, you may not. But if nothing else, what you've done is you've begun to paint that picture of, hey, this ain't no fucking 30-day detox.
Right.
This ain't no 30-day challenge. Like, there is an after to this. And the after is just as important as the now, because the after is going to take much longer than what's going on now.
Can I mention something here, John? Because it's in
I love that.
It's in the context of what you're saying, but there may be listeners that don't get it, because a lot of the coaches that I've worked with personally, and Amber too, I'm sure, they sort of suffer from like premature conversion, right? Being patient enough in that conversation.
What'd you say, Wim?
Premature conversion.
Okay.
Being patient enough in that conversation so you don't shoot your proverbial sales wad, because what will happen is they'll get the activate. Oh, you did so awesome. So let's talk about the next 6 months. I've got 2 programs and one package. Like, being patient enough as you're having that celebratory conversation taking that step back in tonality that John mentioned and saying, you know what, man, can you imagine what this will look like in a year? And just allowing that conversation to evolve naturally as you plant that idea, instead of looking for a script right then. Oh, let me go into my renewal sales script, because we can get so caught up in conversion that we don't listen enough to allow the client to convert themselves. They'll convert themselves if you listen long enough, if you're willing to have a patient conversation. But I've seen so many coaches fumble the ball, and they'll tell me about a conversation, and I'll say, well, what do you say next? And then, okay, what did they say? What did you say next? And then the next thing they said was, let's get on the phone and talk about getting you enrolled in. And I'm like, well, why did you do that so early? Like, why are you so eager to do that right away? Allow the conversation to evolve. We have scripts that are outlines to help guide you, but none of them are intended to suppress the conversation in an effort to quickly get to asking for money. And I think that's a real common misstep that coaches make. I'm done.
Okay.
So
referrals.
Yeah.
So I mentioned at the beginning, the best time to get a referral is, Amber?
When they sign up.
Nailed it. So when they sign up, and it seems odd, it's like, oh, well, they haven't had success yet. It's like, yeah, but they're actually most excited about the future, about the dream when they sign up. And so I think it's really important for you to do that. And so the best thing to do is right when they sign up. So, you know, one of the things that I've noticed over the years of doing this is that when somebody has an accountability partner that they go through this process with, they get way, way better results. And so what I wanted to do is actually give you a VIP pass for whatever, 2 weeks of coaching with me to bring in, you know, do you have a family member, a colleague, a friend who you think would really enjoy going on this journey for? And try to get them to identify somebody, and they might not, but you should get 20 or 30% of people that mention somebody else. And immediately now you're at like a 2-for-1, even with a not great system of doing that. And the second is basically anytime they tell you any sort of a win, like, so an example here is on our, you know, my mentorship, I do these hot seat calls, right? And one of them, he actually, I get people, we post them every Friday, but those are only people who give us permission to post them. And so not everybody wants their call on the podcast, which is totally fine. And so he didn't want his call on the podcast, so I'm going to change his name. So Bill, we'll call him Billy Bob. So just Bill for short. He doesn't like Billy Bob. So Bill for short has a client, and we were talking about, you know, of course, all of these conversations start with like, my content's not converting. And I was like, cool. Have you ever gotten a client with your content? No. Okay. How do you get your clients? Like basically all through referrals, and it's been really good. Okay. Why don't we just do more with that? Instead of trying to fix this thing that has never worked, why don't we just try to get more out of what has always worked? Right. So it's funny because the conversations always start with,
that's so
like,
funny.
like content not working. And it's like, cool, how do you actually get clients? All right, let's just like improve that and make that better and put like the focus on that. And
that's awesome.
And so Bill had a client who's lost like 40 pounds, right? And just like incredible results and stuff. And I was like, so here's what you do. You ask Bill, you're like, because he just had a conversation with Bill about, you know, his amazing results. Or Bill had just had a conversation with his client. I was like, cool. You go to next time you talk to your client, you say, you know, you've had these incredible results. I'm wondering, has anybody noticed? Like, has anybody said anything to you? And what, in the first example that I gave when they're signing up, that's actually like the second best thing to do. Ideally, you would actually have somebody's name of somebody that they've mentioned over the course, you know, hey, you know, you mentioned your sister or whatever. You mentioned your you mentioned your sister was looking to make these changes too. Like, why don't you bring her in? We found that people who have an accountability buddy do better. I'd love to gift her a 2-week VIP. Like, if you can use somebody's name specifically. So what you're doing here, what Bill's doing here with his client is he's trying to get his client to mention the people who have noticed the amazing results that he's gotten in his own transformation, and saying, hey, what if I give you like a $100 VIP gift card for 2 weeks of training for that person? Would you pass it on to Jeff? Would you pass it on to whoever? And just to be on it with like all of these, as you're trying to generate business with these kind of, I don't know, call them tactics, strategies, whatever, is just being really good at the small day-to-day things in like the least sexiest way possible. And what you said, Ren, like, if somebody renews, celebrate it. Or you had, let's do this, and then we'll go to the jokes that I think Amber's laughing at. Ren, you celebrated when a client was leaving.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so obviously I learned that from the Online Trainer Academy course. One of the suggestions in there was celebrating a client when there was actually a script. When I went through the original course, my client so-and-so spread her wings and blah, blah, blah. And it's important to people. It's important that people understand how you resolve relationships in every context. This is just good life advice, right? I'm always wary of, if I'm going to date a young lady and she says, oh, all my exes are crazy. Oh, ex number one did this. It's probably not them. It's probably you. If you have a consistent string of tumultuous endings to relationships.
If you meet one person and you say they're crazy, it's possible they're crazy.
Maybe.
If you meet two people and you say they're crazy, there's a chance. It's small. If you meet three people and you say they're crazy, bitch, you're the crazy one.
Yeah, you're crazy. You're probably crazy. And we
okay. So tell me what you did first, because we haven't gotten that out yet.
So here's what I shared a picture of my client. I personally don't do before and afters anymore, for various reasons. But I shared a great picture of my client.
But you had permission. You shared a picture.
Had permission. Said, Myrtle, is it okay? Her name. Well, just okay. She didn't mind. She gave permission anyway. I said, it's okay.
On your Facebook. Yeah,
it's on my Facebook. I said, is it okay for me to share your picture and celebrate the fact that you have graduated? You completed everything. You did a marvelous thing. She said, yeah, sure. You can do that. So I shared a photo, a very nice photo of her. I made sure the photo was great. I described what I thought was so amazing about what she did. And it's important when you share this type of stuff, because I think oftentimes we will want to edify ourselves instead of the client. The best way to get across that you're a good coach in these situations, I've found, is to put all of the congratulatory effort on the client. It's not what I did. It's not what I taught. It's that Myrtle was so amazing. She decided all of these things. She made these choices. She did an incredible job. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to.
So let me read this post. Let me read this post. One of my online clients just spread her wings and flew out of the nest. We spent about a year together on her journey. I want to wish a happy graduation to Myrtle. She has completed a year of nutrition lessons and strength training routines. Myrtle has done an outstanding job of consistently pouring into her health. Not only that, but she had incredible adherence when it came to her exercise, but more than anything, her mindset shifts and self-motivation has been legendary. At some point, she flipped the switch and truly was operating consistently on her own without any prompting from me. She's absolutely self-sufficient with her wellness journey. It was a pleasure to be part of your journey, Myrtle. Show her some love, y'all. And this post had 63 reactions, likes, and loves, and just like a stream of like, awesome, amazing, she's incredibly beautiful, her confidence shines. Get it? Yeah, congratulations, awesome, amazing. And this is just posted to your Facebook. Okay, let's because we're running long, but that's such a good example. Amber, you gotta what is it? A black guy, a Jewish guy, and a white girl walk into a bar joke?
Yeah, so ChatGPT declined to create a joke. It said it was offensive.
Amazing.
But Canva said no such thing because they have magic Canva. Right. And so
good old racist.
We should really get them to sponsor us.
really
I love this
should.
because it's a non-joke also. A Jewish guy, a black guy, and a white one walk into a bar. They look around and the Jewish guy says, "What is this place? A bar mitzvah?" The black guy says, "No, it's a joke." The woman says, "Well, it's not funny."
Why did they have to make the Caucasian woman the prude, Amber? Are you personally offended by that? Because you're not the prude in our group.
No,
You're not prudish at all.
No, I'm not prudish at all, but
All right. Well,
it's
that's a
making
terrible
fun
joke.
of the. Well, no, it was funny.
It's a bad joke. It's a bad joke. Thank you for listening to the Obvious Choice podcast. Wishing you all the best. And look, if you're looking for another episode to listen to, I wanted to recommend one to you. So, episode what do we got? Episode 27, I think you'll really enjoy. The title of the episode is David Sells $5,000 packages without social media. This was a really fun episode where we kind of worked backwards from the problem instead of forwards from the solution. A lot of people seem to go to social media to try to figure out a way to get clients. It's like, well, David actually doesn't use social media, because what he did is he worked backwards from what he wanted to accomplish and went there specifically and accomplished it. So if you are looking for another episode to flip to right away, I think you'll really enjoy episode number 27. And if you're leaving us for today, wish you the best. Talk to you soon.